Welcome into Let's Bet It. I'm Alex Glaze, joined by Mark Zinno. Zinno, got to start the show talking about your Knicks and that epic collapse last night. I mean, that's just the only. I mean, Knicks fans aren't surprised about what happened last night, right? Like, that's just kind of like how things have gone for the past 20 years for the Knicks.
Yeah, it seems to be about par for the course. I mean, they're an abomination at this point. Last year was a little bit of a flash in the pan, and outside of Linsanity, that's really the only thing we've had to get excited about in the last decade plus. So,
It's
10-year
funny.
anniversary.
It's funny you say that. One of my good friends is a Knicks fan, and we were trying to think of like the top moments for the Knicks over the past, 15, 20 years. And Linsanity, is that it? Is that peak Knicks in the past 20 years?
I mean, sadly to say, I don't know that there's much else to really hang your hat on, right? Like, I don't really know that there's anything else that the Knicks have to really look forward to. I mean, didn't win a playoff series last year, got smoked by Trey Young in their own building. Remember the old, it's getting real quiet.
The bow, yeah.
It's just the thing. It's been a very, very bad run for the Knicks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Cam Johnson also incredible. 9 threes last night for the Suns, who've been dealing with the injury to Chris Paul, Devin Booker out with in protocols. I mean, the Suns really looking like the real deal and the best team in basketball. We're going to talk more NBA later. We have a lot to get to in today's show. We're going to talk some ice picks, get into college basketball with Dan Servodidio. We're going to talk more NBA and then finish things off with our play of the day. So without further ado, let's bet it. Let's start at the ice, where you had a little bit of trouble last night, and you're blaming it not on your pick. I mean, of course, Mark Zinno does no wrong. You're blaming Lauren Jabara. So Lauren's not here to defend herself, so I'll give you the floor. Go ahead, and why are you blaming Lauren Jabara today?
Well, I'm only blaming Lauren because she had to bring up publicly the fact that I had hit 5 in a row on my play of the days as this top part of the show. And of course, the minute you mention the streak, what happens? The streak ends, as it did last night. Penguins and Hurricanes, the two of the three lowest first period over teams in the league, took the under. And what do the Penguins do? Both of these teams on a back-to-back, they scored 2 goals in the first 5 in a row. But we'll just start another one here tonight. We're going to go back to the ice with my play of the day here this evening.
All right. Well, I'm gonna give out my ice pick for today. I'm looking at the Kraken on the puck line against the Capitals tonight at -115. Capitals coming off a big win against the Hurricanes the other day, right? I think that they're maybe a little bit mispriced in this spot because the Kraken have just been so bad this year. I mean, they just snapped a 7-game losing streak, only have 2 wins in their last 10 games. Everyone's pretty much down on the Kraken, and rightfully so. But on the road this season, they've actually been pretty good, holding opponents to 3 goals, under 3 goals per game, I should say. And despite what you might think, being a home favorite is actually not a great spot for the Capitals. Only 1-9 against the spread in their last 10 games as a home favorite. So I think that the Kraken on the puck line is a great play for tonight. You're getting a great price at -115.
Yeah, I'm going to go with one of my ice plays, the Toronto Maple Leafs, Vancouver Canucks. First period over. You know how I love these things. Toronto 4th in the NHL in first period overs. Have done it 32 times this year. They average over 3.5 goals per game. And you look at a Vancouver team themselves, not necessarily bad at finding the back of the net when it comes to their ability to score this year. So, this is a matchup here with Toronto really getting back on the horse after a bad defeat at the hand of the Flames. I think they'll bounce back and come out early and often. We're one of the highest scoring teams in the league. Toronto is this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the chat right now. Jarrett saying that first period killed me. So Zeno, I think he's blaming you for that one. I like that.
Listen, I got to own it, man. It was. I think the handicap was good. Just the results didn't work out in my favor. Just unfortunate that it didn't go that way. And oh, by the way, Jabbar was on the over in that game, and neither one of us hit. So I didn't get the first period under, and she didn't get the game total over. So talk about totally mushing the entire thing.
Before we bring Dan on and talk some college basketball, I want to kind of ask you a couple of questions here as we get ready for conference tournaments, March Madness, everybody kind of getting ready for college basketball to take over the sports world a little bit. Just how do you approach these games in the last week of the regular season, last weekend of the regular season, as we look toward the conference tournament, look toward March Madness? What are you really looking at, if there are any differences between how you approach the regular season?
Well, I think motivation is part of a huge factor, and that's more goes beyond your senior night theory, but it is absolutely a thing. So
Will
I'm
Wade
not
killed
going to take
senior night. Senior night is no longer a play. Will Wade killed it. I'm done with it. I'm done with senior.
well, but still, it does matter. But again, there's motivation for certain teams more than others. You know, certain teams need wins down the stretch here and important wins heading into their conference tournaments in order to strengthen their tournament resume. Now, with the games we're going to discuss, I don't really know that that's the case because all four games, I think all eight teams have a pretty good shot at making the NCAA tournament. But also, you know, the lines are pretty telling. I think the four games that we're going to discuss here in a moment, the lines are what they are for a reason, and it tells you that there's a clear difference between teams which optically glaze, you know, look pretty even, but the lines of the games we're going to discuss are pretty, you know, disparaging, pretty distant from one another. You know, so it's I think it's important to look at the line for what it is and see where the better team is, and you really have to dive beyond metrics that really look beyond the number that ranks the team in the AP poll, the coaches poll, and start looking at where a team actually is. You know, we'll talk about North Carolina. You know, that's a team that's unranked at this point in time. But from a metrics standpoint, particularly offensively, you know, that's one of the better teams in the country, and they can score a lot. So, you know, the distance between them and some of the ranked teams isn't as great as people would think.
You mentioned North Carolina. That's a team in. Are they a tournament team? I
Yes,
mean, they are. They
I
they
think
are
so.
in your mind. They're a tournament team.
Yeah, I mean,
Off,
I don't think they're poised for a deep tournament run because their defense is a liability.
I'm not sure that they make the tournament right now. I think they need a deep run in the ACC tournament.
I mean, I wouldn't call them a lock, but I think they're on the safe side of the bubble at this point.
Okay, probably just because name recognition alone that tends to favor a couple teams in these spots.
I mean, but objectively, I mean, they're second in the ACC, which again hasn't been a great, you know, conference this year overall. But
I
you're
think I saw
talking
that
about
one quad one win, one quad one win.
yeah, but again, they can't control how good everybody else is in their conference. Again, you know, this is a team that won 80% of their conference games. They're going to have a 20-win season. They have one of the best offenses in the country. Look at them against, you know, the top 50. Usually that's how they put that tournament resume together, is with, you know, how they go, not just against the ranked teams, but against the top 50 in Ken Palm and things of that nature and the old RPI, whatever you want to call it. You know, they fared pretty well. And I think for a team like North Carolina, you know, that's the measure of, well, they don't have any good wins, but they really don't have any bad losses either. And so you can't take that away from them from that standpoint. You know, I think I'm always a guy, even when college football, college basketball, your bad losses hurt more than your good wins help, if that makes
Mm,
sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. All right, let's bring in Dan Servodidio, lead college basketball and college football analyst for Fantasy Alarm, to continue this conversation as we look toward a packed Saturday of college basketball. Dan, what's going on?
Yeah, what's up, guys? Pumped to be here with you. Some great games. Regular season wrapping up today and tomorrow.
Great games, great games. All right, let's start in the SEC with Arkansas and Tennessee. This is what I believe is going to be one of the better games today. Tennessee, I believe. Hold on, let me pull up the line right now. If I can spell, I can't spell. I can't spell. I can't spell. What's the line? Is it six? Six and a
Six
half?
and a half.
6.5. Okay.
Six and a
Yeah.
half or six.
6.5, 6.5 or 6 point favorites, depending on where you shop, because I can't spell Tennessee right now. Two of the hottest teams in the SEC. Dan, kind of how are you looking at this game? Before you got on, Mark was saying that all the games we're going to discuss today, pretty much, the lines are what they are for a reason. They might look like on
Yeah.
paper with the rankings that these teams are close, but they, by and large, are not. I believe that Arkansas and Tennessee are pretty close. What do you think?
Yeah, Mark is spot on there, and it's going to be interesting. You know, the other games we're going to talk about, I like some of the dogs, but this one, I just see Tennessee getting a convincing win here at home. You know, when these teams met previously this year, Tennessee shot it very poorly and still played Arkansas tough deep into the second half until Arkansas went on a late run in the last 7 minutes or so to kind of take it. and it was a 10-point loss on paper, but the Vols played that one a lot better, and especially on the road. This team is also just a lot better at home this whole season, undefeated there. And I just think they're going to come out motivated to prove that they are the better team. Especially the teams are tied right now in the conference standings, just going into the SEC tournament to kind of prove that they, their defense is one of the elite ones in the country, just holding teams to 65 points or less. It seems every single game, especially at home. So I think Arkansas is going to run into that today. And like Mark said, this line is this long for a reason. Arkansas has been hot, but I'm expecting that to come down, to stop at some point. And I think today's the day.
All right, Mark, what if I told you that Arkansas is winners in 5 of their last 6 conference road games? Does that make you have any pause when you're looking at the side you're taking today?
Okay, so when the line first came out, my first reaction was too many points, right? Who wants to step in front of the Arkansas train right now? They've covered 9 straight and 12 of 13. Although they haven't covered their last 2, and you could argue they should have covered the Kentucky game with the last second bucket that was kind of garbage. They're 4-0 against the top 25 straight up, 3-1 against. Now, the fair Tennessee team has said that they are undefeated at home, 5-5 versus the top 25 straight up, just 6-4 against the spread. Arkansas had an emotional win over LSU at home, and it feels like a letdown spot against the toughest defense in the SEC. And here's the rub, as Dan just mentioned, Tennessee has not allowed an opponent to score more than 68 points in 8 straight games. The last time they allowed over 70 was back on February 1st. That was over a month ago. This line is so big because Tennessee's defense is so good that it will shut down this Arkansas offense, especially on the road. The number is just too much for me to look to ignore why it's this big. Look, I'm going to stay off the side, to be honest with you. I lean on Tennessee. I think the under comes in here again. I think it's a really low-scoring affair. And both of these teams, Glaze, as you said, I think behind Kentucky are the second and third best teams in the SEC. I think they're both better than Auburn right now. I don't like the way Auburn's playing right now. I like the way both of these teams are playing better than Auburn. But that emotional win over LSU, I think, is going to drain them a little bit. Going on the road against a tough defense, I think Arkansas will struggle offensively. Leaning on Tennessee, playing the under today as well.
And both these teams do have a shot still at that top spot in the SEC tournament. So definitely something to play for when we're looking at that as well. I like that underplay because you're looking at this also. The last time these two teams played, I believe they combined for 106 points. I think it was 58-48. I think that was the final. So what do we have? 139.5 right now, somewhere around there. So that's still pretty low.
I mean, neither one of these teams are getting to 70 today. I just don't see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tennessee's defense is too good. All right, let's move on to Texas and Kansas. Another big number here that we are asking Kansas to cover here. But I'm looking at this spot, and I mean, yeah, Texas's defense has bounced back a little bit, Dan. But I'm looking, and I can't trust this Texas offense to do enough on the road at one of the toughest places in college basketball to play on senior night. No senior night plays. That's not a handicap anymore. But seriously, Kansas, I mean, this just seems like a great spot for Kansas to kind of hit their stride before the tournament, right?
Yeah, well, so I'm going to target what you just said, but kind of just go with the under. I just think this is going to be a lower scoring game, especially because of what you said about Kansas defense at home has been really good against Big 12 competition. Just regularly holding teams to 70 points or less, 6 of the 8 home conference games. And, this game, it's interesting because the first meeting between these teams when it was at Texas featured over 150 combined points. And, Kansas shot it extremely well in that game. And Texas won. But, this rematch, I just see defense becoming a lot more of a priority. Kansas has a shot, depending on what happens with Baylor, to win the Big 12 regular season title. And I think their defense is going to be ready to perform and shut down a Texas offense that has been just so inconsistent for me this year. I mean, it was a weird start to the year with all their transfers coming in, trying to figure out, who's the alpha scorer, who's the alpha playmaker. And they're still trying to figure that out, I think, as they're going into the Big 12 tournament and then the NCAAs. But the offense can be up and down every single game. But their defense is pretty solid. It's also a little bit inconsistent, but I think today they're going to be motivated to try to earn another convincing win over Kansas, like that previous one. So, I'm just looking at this game at the under. I had it at 138.5. It's gone down a little bit there, but I still like the under either way.
Mm-hmm. Mark, how are you kind of looking at this game?
I mean, I'm back in Kansas. I just don't like the way Texas is playing. Since their last win over Kansas, here's what they've done. They've lost to Baylor twice. They've lost to Texas Tech. They needed overtime to beat a very average OU team and only beat a very bad West Virginia team by 1 point. So their only decent win really is over a surging TCU team. They get a revenge spot for Kansas here. They still can clinch the #1 seed for the Big 12 tourney. I think they put it on Texas here. I don't think Texas really has much of a chance. As Dan mentioned, the offense for the Longhorns really, really struggling. I get the team that shoots nearly 49%. I'll back Kansas at home and lay the points today.
Dan, just quick note that this was not on the rundown. I just want to ask you, what's up with TCU? Like, where did this TCU team come from? Because this is like not the TCU team that we've seen for the majority of the season. They look like they're legit. Like, what's up with TCU right now?
They got some dudes they're motivated right now, and I watched both those games against Kansas, and they were just clearly motivated, knowing that they could play with Kansas, especially on the road and the last one. So they're legit. They're going to be a dangerous team. I'm interested to see how they do in the Big 12 tournament. Definitely a team like you guys were talking about with motivation to play well, to earn a couple more convincing wins, and maybe make a run. We were talking earlier about ways to bet conference tournaments, and I just think back to last year. We had Oregon State and Georgetown both make those crazy runs in the conference tournaments to steal bids. I wouldn't be surprised if like maybe TCU makes a run kind of like that. Maybe not winning the whole thing, but just riding that and then into a bracket berth.
I feel like the most dangerous teams. Go ahead. Zeno.
Let me give you one more team to look out for that's doing the same thing that TCU is, and that's Wake Forest.
Yeah.
I mean, just on fire offense and a team that really, can absolutely make some noise not only in the ACC tournament but into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, the most dangerous teams this time of year, I feel like, are teams that are playing with confidence, that have nothing to lose, no pressure, just playing free, and they're just out there hooping.
Yeah. And Wake almost went into Cameron Indoor and beat Duke earlier this year, so they had the confidence to play with Duke.
Yep.
And if they or someone else picks off Duke, the ACC is pretty wide open in terms of that conference tournament.
Speaking of Duke, great transition, Dan. Great transition. This is the game. The game everyone's talking about today. UNC at Duke. Duke favored by 12 points. Coach K's last home game. All right, how are we looking at this game? Because I think that the books, listen, without knowing anything about the game, that the books believe everybody and their mother is going to be betting on Duke today, right? That's how I objectively am looking at this number, 12 points, right? Even before we get into Duke won by 20 points early in the year at Chapel Hill. I don't know how UNC is gonna be able to match up. All these questions, the books know everybody is going to be hammering Duke today. So for that reason alone, I think it's UNC or pass. Right now, I'm passing. You two are not. Sell the people on UNC because both of you are on that side.
All right, yeah. Well, I'll go first. I'm glad Mark agrees with me on this one. Duke is gonna get. I'm interested to see what this line ends up at. Once we get to 6 Eastern for that game to tip. 12. It's going down a little bit in North Carolina's favor, but I'm on the Tar Heels here. I just think that Duke has. They've already clinched the ACC regular season title. Just gonna be a lot of pressure, especially just maybe first half jitters with all the Duke alumni there. All the pregame ceremonies and all that, and just the whole hoopla around this entire game. North Carolina, though, is just going into this playing free, playing loose. You guys were talking about them earlier. Maybe on the bubble right now, but they could really get a good showing here on a national stage. Maybe even pull off the upset to kind of convince everyone that yes, we're a tournament team. Just going into the ACC tournament and just have that off their back. But I just think they're going into this with just no pressure and. They're not going to be scared of this moment. That the earlier game, I'm kind of throwing it out. It was, a blowout win for Duke. North Carolina is a much better team since then. They're playing a lot better lately.
That was also the worst start that I've ever seen a team get off.
Oh, it was terrible. Yeah, it was terrible. Start. But so I just see them playing. The first half as North Carolina underdogs is interesting to me too. But I like the entire game for the Heels to cover here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look, I'll add this much, guys, in that this number is definitively inflated because it's the last home game for Coach K at Cameron. That's got to be
It
baked.
just moved on FanDuel now -11, so it's moving in
Yeah,
Carolina.
it's moving. Yep.
It's baked. I mean, look, objectively, Duke, the last game they played was a 15-point favorite against Pittsburgh on the road. And so, you're telling me that it's a 4-point difference between UNC and Pitt? I don't think so. UNC is markedly better than Pitt. Now, UNC's got some problems on the defensive side. They are 72.5 points a game. But this is a spot where, as Dan said, this is about them showing out in a game that really could help solidify. If they can win this thing outright somehow, I think that puts them right in the tournament. They don't even have to have a good showing in the ACC tournament.
Yeah.
That should be enough to put them over the top. But if they keep it close, they get 1 or 2 wins in the ACC tournament, they should be good. But I'm not going to fight this here, guys. I'm going to play the over today. I told you, 72.5 points per game UNC allows. They're 36 conference play, 10-3 to the over on the road. 7-4-1 to the over. When the total is 150 or higher, including the last game at UNC when the total was 152.5, and UNC 5-1 to the over in conference play when the total is 150 or higher. So I'm not going to try to fight this and look for a way this thing is going to go under. Points will be scored. These games are always fast paced. They're always exciting for the fans. They don't want to see a defensive battle between these two teams. They'll push the pace. UNC will force them to push the pace because they're not going to be able to slow down Duke's offense because their defense just won't allow it. So they've got to play keep up early and often. I'll play the over 153. I'm not going to fight it.
I don't mind that overplay, actually. That's an interesting way to attack this game. All right, let's move on here and let's talk USC at UCLA. Like we were talking about before you got on, Dan. USC ranked 16 in the country, UCLA 17, but USC catching 8 points on the road, something a little bit off there. Do you kind of get that feeling as well?
So this is a game where this line, kind of like the Tennessee and Arkansas game, is that the line might make sense. Vegas knows. But I just look at this and think that UCLA is not 8 points or 7 points, whatever the line is now, better than USC. I just don't think that, especially lately, USC has been a better overall team in my eyes. These teams played previously. USC beat them without their best player, Isaiah Mobley, playing in that one. And so, by the way, since UCLA has beaten Arizona back in that marquee matchup, that was late January, the Bruins' best win is a home win over Washington State, who's not going to make the tournament. Solid team, but just not a tournament team. And they've lost all their toughest games since against Arizona in the rematch, USC that game, Oregon, and they even have a bad loss to Arizona State thrown in there. They had some injuries, and Johnny Juzang is 50-50 to play tonight. So maybe that has part to do. Maybe he's going to play. That's why this line is like it. But USC 5-1 against the spread as underdogs this season, and 4 of those have been outright wins as dogs. I'd gladly take the points here, knowing that this is probably going to be a good game, and USC is not going to be scared of. It's not even a true road game. Yes, it's at UCLA, but they're not traveling at all. So I like USC as the dogs here.
Okay. And Zeno, you are leaning the other way.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's another number that jumps out at me. Initially, you think it's too many points. You start to dive into some of the numbers here, and the one thing you have to take into account here is that USC hasn't played well as of late. Their last 3 wins were by 6 points, including needing double overtime to beat Oregon State, the worst team in the conference. They got blown out by Arizona at home. Was it at home? Yeah, I think it was at home. And by 20. Yeah. In a game that they were never really in. The only thing that's really, and look, full disclosure, I'm very high in the Pac-12. I'm high on USC, UCLA, and Arizona as 3 Sweet 16 teams. I think they are those caliber teams for all 3 of them. That said, what separates USC from a lot of other teams is rebounding and defense. The number 4 in American rebounds per game. They have at least 3 players that average at least 6 rebounds per game. You mentioned Mobley, Goodwin, and the guard Peterson has 6 rebounds per game. Their defense is number 10 in American field goal percentage defense, holding opponents to just 38% shooting. That's what's really saved them. Their offense at times has sputtered. I think UCLA is a little bit more balanced overall. They're top 50 in America on offense in points per game, rebounding, and field goals made per game, and top 50 on defense in points per game allowed field goal percentage defense, and field goals per game allowed. So, whereas is USC has a couple of more highs in certain areas and lows in other areas, I think UCLA rather is a little bit more balanced. And with them being at home, it's just too hard for me to ignore a number this big that says to me that UCLA is playing better. They've got the quality wins recently down the stretch. And, I think that they're going to catch USC here in a bad spot after a blowout loss to Arizona.
Interesting. All right. Dan, I'm looking at the games that you have written down here as your the other games you're eyeing here. And listen, before you get into this, tell me you are not going to convince people to bet their hard-earned money on Georgetown. With all the stuff that's been going on this week, with Patrick Ewing reportedly out after this year, after going winless in the conference, then he sends out a tweet saying he'll let you know when he's done. He's not going anywhere. He'll be back next year. All the mess that's going on with this Georgetown team and for how bad they've been. Tell me that you are not about to tell the people to take Georgetown in the points today.
I am, and it is my favorite spot to bet on today's slate. Honestly,
Oh my gosh!
Listen, I mean, wouldn't it be the way to go out for Ewing if they won this game and finally got a conference win, especially on the road? Xavier, listen, this has been the team I've been betting on lately. It's been a profitable one. They're 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 games, and each of those covers have come as double-digit underdogs, just like they are today against Xavier. Xavier locked into their seed for the Big East tournament, can't move up or down no matter what happens in this game. Georgetown, motivation maybe, but these players, I've watched these games recently. They're playing, they're motivated to get a win. They don't want to be that team that went winless in the Big East conference and maybe gets Patrick Ewing fired. I don't know what to make of all the press releases and the statements of saying maybe he's back, maybe he's not, whatever, we'll tell you. But I just think I see this spot, and I love betting Georgetown as the double-digit underdogs lately, so I'm going right back there. By the way, Xavier 3-14 against the spread against the Big East this season, and also 0-3 against the spread as double-digit favorites against Big East competition. So I'm just putting it all together, and I love this spot for Georgetown.
All right, the people were asking for dumpster picks. I mean, Georgetown technically not a dumpster team, but I mean, I'm putting that in the dumpster today. That's a dumpster dive pick for sure. What else are you looking at?
Yeah, I got 2 more for you real quick. Auburn as big favorites, kind of the opposite way of Georgetown, I guess. Auburn can wrap up a SEC regular season title with a win tonight. And they're big favorites, so they'll probably do it over South Carolina. But I just look at this Auburn team, and I think they want to get a convincing win. They've been great at home to bet on.
And they're at
12,
home. Key.
Yeah, 12-2-1 against the spread at home this season. And when South Carolina has played on the road, if you just kind of look at them a little closer against top tier competition in the SEC, they've lost by 16 to Arkansas, by 20 to Tennessee, and by 19 to Alabama. And they failed to cover as underdogs in all those instances. So I see this Auburn team just looking to go into the SEC conference tournament with a convincing home win and cover this spread. It's a big one, but I'm willing to do it. And then the last one tonight, Morehead State as underdogs to Murray State. Murray State has been everyone's darling team. Can't wait to pick them to win in the NCAA tournament. But just pure motivation factor for this spot. Murray State already good enough. They're already locked into the NCAA tournament. They don't need to win this conference tournament to get an automatic bid.
Really? Hold on. I'll let you finish, but that's interesting you say that. We'll get to that after you finish. Go ahead.
Okay, you can go ahead if you want.
No, you think that they don't need to win their conference tournament? They're going to be they're an auto bid.
Yeah, they're like like Loyola Chicago was last year. Belmont in previous years. They're definitely an at-large team even if they don't win this, in my opinion.
Because I thought it was going to come down. Belmont's in their conference. It's between Murray State and Belmont, right? Like that's.
Well, Belmont probably won't get in. I mean, they're.
I thought that those whoever wins the conference tournament would be the team that represents. That's interesting. That you're
I've been tracking the bracketology, all the mock brackets, and Murray State has been like an 8 or 9 seed in a lot of these brackets, which is
okay. Yeah. So
it just tells me that they're safely in, and I think their computer metrics they're like top 30 in all these advanced metrics. So I think that they're like I said, like Loyola Chicago, like they'd be in either way. So. I think so. Maybe they want a motivation to win here, but I think they're safely in, and they They have been for a couple weeks, I think. So,
Okay.
um, yeah. So, but with Morehead State, I mean, they have motivation to just come out here and win and steal a bid for one of the at-large teams. And Morehead State, in both the meetings against Murray State earlier this year, they hung around in both those games. In the last one, they lost by 4 points at home less than a month ago, but they let it slip away late. They easily could have won that one. So I think they just have motivation. And last night, they played Belmont in the semifinal, and I was watching that one late last night. It ended, and the head coach afterwards, they asked him about it, and the first thing he mentioned was, we have a bad taste in our mouth that we lost to Murray State, a month ago. So they've been thinking about it. They want this game. So I like Morehead State as underdogs to maybe keep it close. Maybe they don't win, but 7-point underdogs. I like that.
Nice. Zeno, do you have any other games you're looking at?
No, I'm going to stay off the rest of the college slate today. So I'm going to pass and look to the ice in the NBA tonight.
All right, Dan. Before we let you go, one question for you. Zeno and I were kind of disagreeing on this. You touched on it a little bit. UNC tournament team right now. Yes or no?
I think so. Yeah, I do think so. I think they will be motivated to play Duke tight tonight to, if they don't win, to get a good close game. But I think they are. That eye test for me, they've been playing a lot better the last month. So I just see them as ahead of some of those other bubble teams. Maybe it comes down to, who knows what the committee does, but I think they're in.
All right, it's Dan Servodidio, lead college basketball and college football analyst for Fantasy Alarm. As always, Dan, thank you for your time. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you guys both. Have a good one.
You too. All right, Zeno, let's wrap things up and talk some NBA before we move into our plays of the day. I've been eyeing the chat as I always do. And of course, I'm catching some heat for my Steven Adams plays. The people are like, are you going back to Steven Adams today?
Listen, what we talked
about. Hold on. Let me tell you something about my Steven Adams rebounds play. He had 3 rebounds in the first 3 minutes. I can't help that the man rolled his ankle. He still finished with 8. I mean, he sat out half the first quarter and I think like most of the second quarter before he came back. Like, he still grabbed 8, didn't look the same when he came back. Like, he rolled his ankle. I mean, what can I do about that? But, I mean, listen, that being said, I was looking for Steven Adams.
Unfortunately, people in the chat don't care about your handicap. They care about your results.
No. And you know me. So as soon as I see that, what am I looking for? I'm looking for a Steven Adams play. And they don't have any in on FanDuel available just yet for that Grizzlies Magic game. But some games that I am looking at and that we've been looking at over the past couple of weeks. I mean, I hit on Tyrese Maxey earlier in the week, 16.5 points. I mean, he's just been on an absolute tear lately. I mean, there's no way. I'm looking right now. The Sixers play the Heat. They don't have any player points props available on FanDuel just yet for that game. But there's no way the books keep giving us 16.5 points, right? Like, I thought that was done 2 games ago. They did it again last night, and he blew past that number. Do you think we get 16.5 again for Maxey? And if so, we got to play it, right?
I think so. I think your threshold probably gets closer to 18 or 19, right? I mean, that's really where the number goes. But again, those are about matchups, Glaze. Obviously, I don't think it's a blind of, if his number is here, I'm going to bet. Well, I shouldn't say that. If his number's at 16, I think you can almost blindly bet it over, given where he is.
DraftKings has it at 17.5, and the over's plus 100. That's interesting. That's interesting that it's even money, because it's pretty much. I mean, if you look at what Maxey's been able to do over the past four games with Harden in the lineup, I mean, he's just been absolutely crushing it over, I think, averaging more than 24, 25 points.
I mean, there will be a market correction on it. It's just a question of how much.
Mm-hmm. What are you looking at in the NBA tonight?
Just one play that I'm looking at in between the Hornets and Spurs, and at 241.5, and I get it. Right, both of these teams have top 10 offenses. In fact, the Hornets have the best offense in the NBA, and both of their defenses are bottom 5. Now, since the All-Star break, the Spurs have averaged giving up 124 points per game in regulation. They had 1 game in overtime, and the Hornets have given up just 109 in regulation. They also had 1 game in overtime. Now, both these teams have reached 120 in 2 out of their 4 games since the break. Charlotte 13-10 to the over in non-conference games. San Antonio 17-10 in non-conference games. However, Charlotte is 1-237 or higher to the over. And San Antonio has only had 2 totals posted 237 or higher. They came in their last 2 games. They both went under. I think this total is inflated enough for me to sweat out an under 241.5 between these two teams tonight.
You have any thoughts on Warriors-Lakers tonight? Warriors 6-point favorites. I mean, the Lakers can't keep getting smoked, right? Like eventually they got to come back to life, right? Like this.
No, they're bad. They're constructed poorly. And I don't know. Again, we've been discussing a lot on the show. What's more embarrassing for the Lakers, to miss the playoffs altogether, or to make the play-in game as the 9 seed and lose to the Pelicans without Zion Williamson? I think it's the latter. But still, this is not a very good team. And really, LeBron right now is just about his numbers, his stats, and everything else. So I don't know that it's not a team that I can back at any point in time.
All right. Let's finish things up with our plays of the day. What's on the website? We have any 3-star plays for today to give out to the people?
Oh, I am delinquent in my duties, but I will get them here in just 1 second. I always forget this co-hosting role here when I'm sitting in the number 2 chair. But I do have one.
You got to actually do work. Yeah, I know.
I know it's sometimes it's crazy. Sam Avalone, 3-star player of the day. South Carolina Auburn over 145 between the two SEC teams tonight, which again I totally can get. South Carolina's defense is not great, but they can score. They've played a lot of high total. Wilson balls certainly will score into the 80s.
All right, people are saying Pickswise needs to get us some better internet because we're lagging here. I was having internet troubles the other day. You're having internet troubles today. Let's wrap this up. What's your play? What's your play of the day?
I'm going to steal one from you and our good friend Lauren Jabbar. I'm going to back the Ice Cats, the Florida Panthers tonight. I'm going to lay the 1.5 on the puck line as they're going to have Bobrovsky in net. It looks like it'll be backup Thomas Greiss for Detroit. Bobrovsky gives up 2.5 goals against, whereas Greiss gives up 3.37. Florida, the highest scoring team in the NHL, averaging 4 goals a game, over 4 goals a game. That's more than 1.25 goals better than what Detroit is able to score. Florida is home. They had a 3-game losing streak. They bounced back, but this is where they start another run. They're only a point behind the Lightning in the division for the number 1 seed. So obviously every game super important for them. Always look for those hedges where I get a very good team against an average or a below average team. That's the spot that I'm in on home ice tonight for the Florida Panthers. Going to back them -1.5 on the puck line. Let's go Ice Cats.
All right. And as much as I would love to give out a Steven Adams rebounds play just for you, Sean, and as much as I want to look at Maxey and those 17.5 points, that even money is just so juicy, I'm going to go to the ice, and I'm going to go with the Kraken play that I gave out earlier in the show. The Capitals are coming off a big win against the Hurricanes, and I just think that they're being a little overpriced in this spot. Kraken, they've been bad all season, just snapped a 7-game losing streak, only 2 wins in their last 10 games. They've just been bad, right? But on the road this season, Seattle's defense has been okay, and this is actually a bad spot for the Capitals as home favorites. They're only 1-9 against the spread in their last 10 games as a home favorite. So I'm looking at the Kraken on the puck line. It's -115, and I'm just going to hope for the best. I think it's going to be an ugly game, but Seattle just cover the puck line. That's all we need. We don't need to win. Just cover the puck line. All right, let's get out of here. Any final thoughts for the people before we get out of here?
No, I will do my best to start a new streak of play of the day winners. So after I was snapped last night, let's get right back on the horse. 3 straight NHL picks for me for the play of the day. So let's get back on the horse here.
Yeah, do your best to also fix your internet. Your internet's been terrible all day. Do work on that too. Work on that. All right, that'll do it for us today. Good luck with your plays, Mark, and good luck out there to you all as well with your plays. We will be back tomorrow at 10 a.m.